Hello everyone, my name is Gabby and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super review. This time reviewing episode 105. Roshi has been secretly watching everyone and now it's his time to fight on his own against members of Universe 4. One tries to use seduction but Roshi manages to overcome it. Another uses illusions, which makes Roshi have to use the Mafuba to contain them and defeat them. And the third, Ganos, is stronger than Roshi, but Roshi uses his experience to read his moves and overpower him, saying Goku and Krillin have taught him that it's never too late to break past your limits. But this final attack nearly kills him, with Roshi only surviving from Goku's desperate intervention. So, what did I like about this episode? Well, first of all, this was basically the Roshi episode, and it was the Roshi goes and fights and manages to defeat a whole bunch of opponents episode. And while I did enjoy it, I enjoyed a lot of Roshi's fights, and I felt like a lot of them kind of explored different aspects of his character and his abilities as a fighter and what he can do in terms of his techniques and all that. The other thing that I also really appreciated about Roshi's fights in particular was with the exception of maybe the first one, the story tried to kind of give a justification as to why Roshi in particular basically had to defeat these characters and why it was basically really important. In any other situation, it would be fun to see Roshi fight a whole bunch of opponents, but it would honestly be kind of undermined by the kind of harsh reality of the fact that, really, if Goku sort of came in and went blue, he could probably just deal with these guys within 5 seconds and there's almost no point in Roshi even fighting them in the first place. But in this episode, and in Roshi's fighting, that's not the case. They did try to give a reason as to why Roshi in particular had to basically be the one to defeat them. First, there was that character who sort of uses illusions, and Roshi was basically saying that the other fighters are really strong, but somebody who can use illusions would probably be kind of difficult for them because they're not necessarily as good as dealing with stuff like that. So it's good that he has the Mafuba to basically just instantly kind of incapacitate them. And then with Ganos, they had the idea that he might not be that strong now, but he basically, throughout this tournament, he's been progressively getting stronger, and if Roshi doesn't defeat him now, he could potentially be a threat to Goku, or at least just be kind of like, just a bit of a hindrance to Goku, or any of the other characters, if he basically sits there and lets him get stronger, because he can't defeat him. Not only did they have Roshi fight, and have Roshi look cool while he fought, they actually gave a reason as to why he had to fight, and why that was important, and why in particular these opponents really made him try to force himself to go past his own limits, and that's fun. It makes this episode feel like it has a bit more to it other than just kind of mindless fan service. And the other thing I liked about the Roshi and Ganos fight in particular was that it kind of actually full out stated that Ganos was actually faster and stronger than Roshi, but Roshi was managing to get the upper hand in the fight because he was more experienced, to the point that he was sort of reading Ganos' moves and he sort of knew what he was going to do before he did it, which made him able to dodge his attacks even if Ganos was actually faster than he was. Basically, they actually had an episode where they pretty much said that, experience can actually trump power. It can actually kind of trump the power scale. And that is something I really appreciate. That was something that they were trying to hint at and kind of sort of state almost directly throughout a lot of the kind of recruitment stages of the Tournament of Power, kind of as a justification as to why they were keeping these characters around. And I really enjoyed that, and I thought that was a really cool idea, but I wasn't really sure if they were going to stick by that idea when the Tournament of Power actually started. I thought they were going to throw all that stuff out the window and kind of just sort of revert back to oh no, actually, it's whoever is strongest who actually wins in this tournament. But they actually didn't. They had a real actual example where strategy and experience did actually trump power, and it was kind of even somewhat plot relevant. Ganos was a character we had been seeing before at least a few times, so I really appreciate it. It makes you think that the recruitment episodes actually were really important parts of the tournament, and things were kind of logically leading from the beginning to the end, from the recruitment to the Tournament of Power. I'm glad that they kept this in there. And then we get to the part at the end where Roshi pretty much breaking his own limits causes him to pretty much almost kill himself, and is only saved at the last minute because Goku manages to kind of do a kind of key chest compression sort of thing. And I enjoyed this, for two reasons. One, it was a kind of surprising sort of breath of fresh air of kind of realism. It's sort of telling us that, oh no, Roshi can actually be surprisingly strong and can actually do a lot, but there is a limit to what he can do, and if things get a bit too crazy, he actually might legitimately die from it. And second of all, Goku's reaction. You could tell he was actually really concerned and upset and really worried and was really desperately trying to make sure that Roshi stayed alive through this tournament. When it looks like Goku has failed, he seems traumatized. And when it turns out that Roshi is actually okay and he will survive it, Goku was basically crying, hugging him and crying. That is an emotional reaction that you don't see from him very often. And that's what makes it so kind of interesting and so actually kind of shocking. I don't think anyone was really expecting Goku to express this much emotion, and it kind of almost caught us all off guard, but I think that almost made it just kind of feel even more dramatic in a way. The idea that the situation is so dire and it's so important that the plot kind of sort of privileges this by making Goku act very differently to what he normally does. That's how you know it's a big deal, and that's why they did this episode, and that's why I think it really worked. As for what I didn't like about this episode, well, I don't really find sexual assault very funny. In Roshi's first fight, where the opponent tries to sex appeal on him and it doesn't work, and then Roshi pretty much prepares to fight back, and then the opponent basically runs off saying that he's gonna make her unsuitable as a wife, and then she basically eliminates herself, and that kind of made me think that, wait, is she running off because she thinks that Roshi is going to sexually assault her? Because if that was the joke, I don't really find that funny. Even if the joke was that Roshi wasn't actually going to sexually assault her, and that was just something that she thought was going to happen, it was basically her misreading the situation, the fact is it was still kind of a joke about her thinking that she was going to be sexually assaulted, and I don't think it's very funny, and yeah, it's a joke and it didn't really hit very well for me. I'm not saying it shouldn't have existed or that it's sexist or the blah 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 blah. I'm just saying I didn't find it funny and I didn't really enjoy it. I'm allowed to say that at least. So as for next episode, it seems like a member of Universe 2 is targeting Universe 7 with basically Key's sniper fire, and it seems like all of Universe 7, or at least a very large majority of Universe 7, is going to be affected by that. I've got to say the thing I'm most interested about from the stuff around this episode is it seems like a lot of the gang of Universe 7 are going to be kind of reconvening a bit more this episode, because it seems like they've kind of all got a kind of common threat and they're all going to be fighting at once. As much as I've been enjoying a lot of these characters sort of being able to fight on their own and being in their own sort of small groups, I was honestly thinking that kind of a missed opportunity of the Tournament of Power was having like so many character interactions between basically like the 10-member team kind of all at once. We didn't really get much of that because they kind of all split apart so quickly. So if this episode kind of brings everyone back together and we get to see more of those kind of character interactions between like everybody at once, I think that would be really kind of interesting. So that was Dragon Ball Super episode 105. That was fun. Also really kind of surprising in context. I mean, this episode, if you really think about it, was all about Muten Roshi, about Kame Sennin, that character who hasn't really fought since like the 22nd tournament, disregarding Brief Partner Resurrection F, actually fighting alone, fighting using his own sort of abilities and skills as a fighter, and kind of exploring his character in terms of that. I don't think anyone was really expecting that much of Roshi when he was revealed as part of the roster for the Tournament of Power, and I don't think anyone was expecting him to not only kind of get so many big achievements, but also look so cool in the process. Even if it did nearly kill him, they made Roshi go through his own particular struggles, and he overcame those struggles with his own particular ways, and they actually went out of their way to try and show how that would benefit everybody else who were way stronger than he was. It is perhaps one of the most un-Toriyama things that Super has done so far, actually giving side characters who didn't have much relevance before a lot of relevance and thinking about how to make them relevant, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people have been enjoying it, and I found it really enjoyable myself. This would be the point where I go around and start asking as to when exactly the kind of real tournament is going to start, when the climax is going to start, because once again we had an episode that was sort of fun but mostly kind of like some random adventures and it doesn't really feel like the stakes are getting higher, but we have just gotten some information over when stuff like that is going to happen, and that's going to be happening in some time in October it seems. There's a few more episodes of stuff and then they are definitely going to get to the climax. We know the climax is coming and we roughly know kind of some things that are going to be happening in the climax. How long the climax is going to go for, whether the climax is going to continue on, whether there's this whole some big red herring and actually the climax is just like a start of something bigger. I don't know, but at the very least we kind of know that the end is in sight and there is an end game and there is something bigger in the horizon. Something big enough that they're trying to promote it already. With that knowledge, I don't really know what they're going to be doing the next few episodes. Honestly, pretty much anything could happen at this point, but at the very least, I hope it'll be entertaining, and perhaps if we are going to get a climax, I wonder if they're going to be doing kind of a slow build towards that moment, so when that moment occurs, it doesn't feel like it kind of comes completely out of nowhere. It's just kind of like a sudden transition from fun kind of fights against sort of fodder opponents to suddenly we're fighting the really big guys. Hopefully there'll be kind of a good transition there, but I'm still enjoying the ride. I do wonder how the ride is going to go. So this is Gabby signing out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye guys!